Gavel, Where Truth Meets Compassion. The first part of the Grace and Gavel live is she left her car behind and then disappeared into thin air. This is the case of Patricia Meehan. There was a crash scene in which it was a minor crash. She actually survived the crash and ended up walking away. Even though this was an unusual case where there were several witnesses, they said she appeared disoriented. Her behavior was off. And so the genesis of her behavior and what was actually going on is still a mystery. At certain points, there was a situation where witnesses had seen her and continued to see her for a while. However, she was never conclusively found. And this case still fascinates people. It happened in 1989, in which she walked away prior to help arriving. And so a lot of people are fascinated by the case because she actually had a appointment for a counseling appointment or something of that nature the next day, which she never appeared for. And ultimately, there's a lot of legal and investigative limitations, especially where the accident happened. And also, it's really important to remember that Patricia was a person. She was a person who had hope. She was a person who had dreams until she made headlines. And those headlines do not always define the people that we think is going to define them. Multiple people saw her after the crash, then nothing. Cases like this haunt people because there's no clear ending. Part 2, the psychology behind Walkaway disappearances. So specifically focusing on Brandon Lawson, Maura Murray, and Jennifer Kesse. Oftentimes people who have the stress responses generally can be known to potentially walk away for certain reasons. Jennifer Kesse is probably the one that doesn't really match this because she was actually living in her condo in Metro West in Orlando, Florida at the time. And her vehicle, she was a very reliable person, so I doubt that she intentionally walked away or chose to walk away. Likely it was some of the construction workers at her property, as it was a fairly new property, or condo that she had just bought. But Brandon Lawson and Maura Murray definitely fit this because Brandon Lawson was the one who made the chilling 911 call that people still can't fully agree on what it meant. He was talking about potentially being near the oil fields. Some people asked about whether or not there was cartel involvement. And so that can be kind of iffy. He was talking about being chased by Mexican men. There were 2 cars on either side of him, is what he said. He said he needed 911. He needed 911 dispatched by the point that he was actually waiting and ready, potentially, they thought. But if you listen to the 911 tape, it's still on YouTube. Very disturbing, a lot of things that are really hard. Some people hear certain things, some people hear other things. And then you go to Brandon Lawson, they said that he was paranoid, but he did actually end up being discovered near that area. So yeah, he wasn't paranoid. He likely was experiencing something that he couldn't fully realize. Maybe he was even terrified. And then Maura Murray, as you know, Maura Murray was the girl from New England, and she had had some issues with credit card mismanagement, I believe, of another student. There were issues with her sister struggling with some things. She had also wrecked her dad's car previously. She had went and withdrawn money. She'd had issues with her boyfriend. So there was a lot of pressure on her, was potentially looking at an honor code violation, which would drive anyone, insane and crazy, especially if you are a conscientious person and if you are a person who's struggling with all that weight. That is a lot of weight. And apparently there's some thought that she may have packed up her room and been ready. And so ultimately Maura Murray has yet to be seen. There was a small window of time in which she slipped away. She had told the bus driver that she had actually sought out help. However, there was no cell service, so that kind of keeps that from happening quickly. And so oftentimes stress responses can do a lot of things to a lot of different people. I know I'm terrible at stress. I know I've said that before. And then there's the fight, flight, or freeze, or fawn even. Some people react in different ways. I tend to be a freezer, honestly. And then confusion after crashes, especially if there's a head injury, especially if there's a lot of additional emotional weight there, as well as disorientation. And then is it substance use versus panic versus fear? We don't truly know because we don't have those people in front of us, and they all have disappeared essentially. And abandoned car cases become obsession cases because the brain looks for closed loops. And these cases continue to survive and continue to live in the internet long after. And a lot of new people are currently discovering them again. So we have to remember that these were people that were loved by other people, family members who are still dealing with the aftermath of this and wondering if they're ever going to get any semblance of closure. And so they're not puppets, they're not AI, they are people who actually lived and actually had people who loved them. So I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. If you got some value from this, please feel free to like and subscribe, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.